You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Folks, although Montclair State University is on spring break, sports don't go away. We have a lot to talk about. I am your host, Sebastian Stratton, joined alongside my very wonderful co-host, Mr. Nick Suppa. Nick, we got to campus today. Parking was good. No issues parking. Got into the School of Communication and Media, and we are ready to go. A lot to talk about. The tampering period in the NFL opened up on Monday, I believe. A lot of free agents signed, and a big trade for our Pittsburgh Steelers. And in the MLB, the injury bug hits the Yankees again, and we will get to all of that and more. But Nick, how are we doing today?
Well, as you said, Sebastian, parking here at Montclair State is definitely much easier now that we're on spring break. I hope everybody who's listening is having a great spring break so far at Montclair State, as well as others who may not be from Montclair State, but also decided to tune in today. Hope you guys are all doing well. But overall, Sebastian, we definitely got a lot of sports to cover, as you mentioned.
We do have a lot to talk about, and I think it's only right, staying on the topic of Montclair State University, we kick it off with some men's and women's basketball. We highlighted it last week. Both the men, led by head coach Justin Potts, and the women, led by head coach Karen Harvey, clinched automatic bids to the NCAA Division III tournament. Just like Division I, 64 teams, you go for it all. Win and move on, lose and you go home. And on the med side of things, they matched up with Utica University in their first round matchup, defeated them 79-57. Great game all around. I was here in studio for that. Tons of players got involved, led by Mike Jackson, 20 points, Jacob Morales 19, and there he is again. Kieran Flanagan, 10 rebounds, 10 points, 2 steals, 5 assists. He really did it all. So they won that game, took a great victory against a very good Utica team who, coming into that matchup, won 6 in a row. And then the day after, March 8th, that Saturday at 5:45 p.m., they matched up with Western New England University in the round of 32. And that game did not go as well. Montclair State, unfortunately, was defeated 79-61. And they had a difficult time all around. It wasn't a game where they got into a rhythm. Their leading scorer, Jacob Morales, did not play well. He only had 2 points, 0 for 10 from 3, something you don't really see from Morales. But again, that doesn't take away the great season that he had, the great season this Montclair State men's team had all around. They are NJAC champions. They won their first March Madness game under Coach Potts in his 6th season as head coach. Very, very good season, nothing to hang their heads over, and a great young cast to build off of. Cabrian Goss, he's great. Ahmad Robertson. So, for Coach Potts, the future is bright. You are going to miss your seniors, and I want to give a quick shout-out to those players is Kieran Flanagan, Mike Jackson, Quantavious Rogers, Luis Armas, Francisco Paulino, Grant Holbrook, and Henry Myers, all players who contributed throughout the season. Francisco Paulino, it was great to see him score in his March Madness game, coming off an injury from North Bergen, New Jersey, the local kid from around here. Great to see him score, get involved. They all will be missed, and best of luck in their future endeavors. You will always be part of Montclair, and forever, NJAC champions. Nothing you can take away. So, with that being said, Nick, I want to turn it over to you, because I know you have a little women's recap for us on their side of things.
I do. And as we all know, we discussed this last week, both the Montclair State men's and women's team made some massive history as they both won the NJAC title and made their way into the NCAA Division III tournament. And like the men's team, the women's team also won their first matchup in the NCAA first round game against Christopher Newport University. They traveled on the road to Washington, D.C. It was a nail-biter, that's for sure, but in the end, Montclair State won that game 67-64 to move on to the second round, but unfortunately, that was the farthest that they can get to. They didn't travel far at all. They remained in Washington, D.C. to play Sonny Genesio, and they unfortunately fell in that game. It was close after the first half, but after that, Sonny Genesio took control and won that game by 21 points by a score of 71-49. So it was a tough loss for Montclair State. It was not their best performance, of course, but they tried as usual. Alexis Strollo had 12 points in that game, 1 for 4 from the three-point line, 4 for 10 with field goals. Olivia Vero, in most likely her final ever game as a Montclair State Red Hawk, 9 points, 4 for 15 with field goals, 1 for 1 from the free throw line, total of 10 rebounds, so almost had a double-double, and it was just an unfortunate loss for Montclair State, probably one of their worst in the season, but it was a tough Sonny Genesio team they went up against. Shout out to them on a fantastic and unforgettable season. Karen Harvey with another NJAC title under her belt, now was a part of this Red Hawks team for 7 out of their 8 titles that they've had in the program. Another championship for Karen Harvey, as I mentioned, and shout out as well to all the players on a terrific season all around, including the 4 seniors who we will most likely not see next year, including Olivia Vero, Brianna Montajes, Lindsay Ross, and Sophie Benaventine. Fantastic job to them, and a great job to the entire women's Montclair State basketball team. You guys, we can't wait to see you next year.
Really well said, Nick. And that's one thing you can't take away, is NJAC champions. We mentioned it, and it's not just that. The hard work and dedication these young men and women put into their craft, and it shows. They come out on top. Unfortunately, they didn't win the grand prize, per se, and NCAA Division III champions. But again, great season overall. A lot to look forward next year, because there are great players on both sides. And with that being said, we are going to shift over to some Major League Baseball. We're almost there. I think about a week and a half until the Tokyo series kicks off. But until then, Nick, I think it's a common theme on the show, the injury bug. It hits them again, the New York Yankees, but this time it is very, very serious, because we all know the common hamstring injury, elbow tendonitis, in this case is serious. Not with this player we are going to mention, but the player after that. But it hits them again in a very consequential way, as Garrett Cole, the ace pitcher for the Yankees, will be undergoing Tommy John surgery, which is season-ending, and he will miss the entire 2025 MLB regular season and a good portion of the 2026 season. Nick, this is very devastating to say the least. I mean, last Thursday, a week from today, he pitched regular spring training game versus the Twins, and he got lit up. Gave up 6 runs in 2 2/3 innings to the Twins. After the game, he felt all right. He was asked, Aaron Boone naturally, "Hey, Garrett, how do you feel?" "Yeah, my arm feels fine." Next day, woke up with some soreness around the bicep area towards the elbow. Went for an initial round of testing. Didn't go too well. He kind of had an idea that this would be severe. He wanted to get it tested out. So he flew out to Los Angeles to meet with the Yankees team doctor. And unfortunately, it was confirmed. Garrett Cole will be needing Tommy John surgery. Nick, how brutal of a loss is this?
It's horrible, especially whether you're the Yankees or you're another organization, you never want to lose. You don't want to lose a pitcher. You don't want to lose a player. You don't want to lose anyone for the entire season. And for the Yankees, this is definitely brutal, because you're talking about a guy who was just 2 years ago the Cy Young Award winner in the American League, in Garrett Cole. Last year, he did get a little bruised a couple of times, but unfortunately, before even heading into the 2025 season, after their run last year for a World Series championship that just fell short against the LA Dodgers, he will now miss the entire 2025 season, needing Tommy John surgery in that throwing elbow of his. And when you're a pitcher, you don't want to believe this. You don't want to believe this is happening. And as Garrett Cole did not want to assume right away that he needs the Tommy John surgery because he wanted a second opinion. He did not want to get the Tommy John surgery. He wanted to fight through that. And I love this in a player, a guy who wants to go out there and just play no matter what. Like, I'll break my arm to play in this game. And that's what Garrett Cole is. But unfortunately, he got a second opinion, and they said the exact same thing, that they recommend Tommy John surgery, and Cole didn't really have much of a choice there. And now the Yankees will be without their ace pitcher going into the 2025 season, and now leaving them one other pitcher short, as they are also going to be starting the season without their other starting pitcher, Luis Heel, who was also the American League Rookie of the Year last year. So for the Yankees, very tough loss, and for Garrett Cole, we wish him nothing but the best of luck with his surgery.
Absolutely, nothing but the best. And I think you put it very well. Players all the time, they fight through injuries. We've seen it in the past. This isn't something you can fight, unfortunately. And the thing that hurts is that when Garrett Cole signs here from Houston, his one goal, him and Aaron Judge, they share the same goal, is to win a championship. They had the opportunity last year versus the Dodgers. Coming into this season, you want to get that revenge because we saw in the offseason, the Dodgers kind of downplayed the World Series. Dodgers pitcher Joe Kelly, he stated that the Yankees didn't look ready. They were fundamentally not there. He was basically criticizing them, rightfully so, because the Yankees did not play well. But Aaron Boone didn't necessarily take a liking to that. He said he can have his own opinion, but we fought, so he wasn't necessarily pleased. And I think that everyone in the Yankees organization had a chip on their shoulder coming into the season, and this really hurts because we aren't talking about any pitcher. We're talking about a former Cy Young Award winner throwing upwards of 98 miles per hour with a slider. And there are certain guys, when they get on the mound, they have a certain vibe to them, an energy. Garrett Cole is an intimidating person. He comes out there, that's what the ace is in baseball. He's the guy, game one, going into the playoffs, all the way from when you start the regular season in late March to when it ends in September. You give him the ball and you know that you're going to get 5 quality innings with 8 strikeouts. So this hurts, and that's why in the MLB, free agency and depth is so important. And we saw that when the Yankees went out there. They signed Max Fried, 31 years old. He's now going to step into that ace role, presumably. And then everybody kind of jumps up a spot. Carlos Rodon is the 2. Marcus Stroman, who going into spring training didn't even have a roster spot. He is now the 3rd or 4th pitcher in that rotation, give or take. You can flip-flop him or Clark Schmidt. So if you want to assume Clark Schmidt's your 3, Marcus Stroman is your 4, and now another guy inserts in there, Will Warren, the 25-year-old second-year pitcher. He's someone that has looked good in spring training. He struggled last season. He pitched to, I believe, a 10 ERA in limited appearances. So he's a guy, he throws 93, 94, but we all know velocity isn't everything. You have to have good control, especially for Will Warren. And Marcus Stroman, he's a guy that is going to have to prove himself. He can be someone if Luis Heel gets healthy, and I don't know, maybe Carlos Carrasco, he can be someone free agent the Yankees signed, inserted into that starting rotation. But overall, this hurts. It really does hurt because Garrett Cole is irreplaceable. Max Fried said it. I'm going to go out there. A reporter asked him, how do you feel about being the ace? He said, that's not my job. My job is to go out there and be the best pitcher I can be because Garrett is irreplaceable. So it hurts.
True, Sebastian.
It really, really does hurt. And Nick, I think that I heard thunder because it just rained even more. Nick, what is going on the offensive side? Mr. Giancarlo Stanton.
Well, as you said, I could have sworn I felt some trembling in the area from the thunder because, unfortunately, the woes just continue for the Yankees. And obviously, we did know this already, but Giancarlo Stanton originally was going to miss perhaps maybe a couple of weeks in the beginning of the season, But now there's talks that he could also miss the entire 2025 season with his tendinitis injury in both of his elbows, and he may need to get surgery for that as well. And this guy is no stranger for the Yankees. In the regular season, he may not be the face of the Yankees, but in the playoffs, he may be one of the biggest faces in baseball at that point, because he is one of the purest hitters in the playoffs, especially for the Yankees. This guy is just a monster home run hitter. He probably still to this day has the hardest hit ball on record, and even at 35, 36 years old, he still hits the ball pretty hard, where the moment it goes off that bat, that ball is going to be nowhere to be found. So this is definitely an effective bat that the Yankees just unfortunately are not going to have in that lineup starting the 2025 season. But not having him in there for the entire season, I mean, this is definitely a downgrade for the New York Yankees going into the season. And I mean, I know there have been talks of players who could come in place of Giancarlo Stanton. As we know, Anthony Rizzo, their first baseman, is a free agent. He hasn't been signed by anybody. So, I mean, there could be questioning, is Anthony Rizzo going to return to the Yankees, or are they going to go searching and find somebody else to take Giancarlo Stanton's spot?
It's going to be very interesting for sure, because Stanton is another guy. Looking at the starting lineup, he was projected to be your 4-hole hitter, the one you place behind Aaron Judge to give him protection, because Aaron Boone stated that Judge was going to be your 3-hitter. It was going to be insert any leadoff hitter that you want, that which we'll get to, Cody Bellinger, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton behind him. And as we keep mentioning, this now puts a lot of pressure on the 37-year-old Paul Goldschmidt, who is a former All-Star, is a former MVP winner. Yankees would have had 4 MVP winners in their starting lineup: Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, and Paul Goldschmidt. So now you put a lot of pressure on the 37-year-old to come in there, insert it into that 4-hole, and protect Aaron Judge, because he has to hit. And I like what we've seen in spring training. He looks better. Maybe it's the facial hair. He shaved. Maybe he had to get that beard off or something. Even though they took away the rule, but he's looked good. He's put the ball in play. We've seen him shorten up on his stride with 2 strikes and make contact, because we need that more with the Yankees, because when push comes to shove and it's playoff time and there's a runner on third with 1 out, you don't need a home run. Sure, everybody loves to put one into the bleachers.
Definitely.
I think that's best case scenario. But again, sometimes all you need is a little base hit to right field, drive the run in, because runs are difficult to come by in the playoffs, especially when the bullpen matters a lot, because we see Luke Weaver emerged on the season last year. He was someone inserted there. He took out Clay Holmes as the closer. He was inserted as that guy. So now you're in a situation where a lot of pressure is on Paul Goldschmidt, and just 5 through 9 in the lineup in general, looking at it, Jason Dominguez, Ben Rice, Oswaldo Cabrera. I mean, I think a lot of pressure is on the third-year shortstop, Anthony Volpe. This is someone, he's a Gold Glove winner, but he struggled offensively. However, I do like the way he's played in spring training. This is someone who had his hardest hit exit velocity off the bat versus the Phillies the other day, where he hit a home run, 110 miles per hour into the bullpen. So I think his bat speed is up there. I think he'll be a key contributor that has to contribute if the bottom of this Yankees lineup is going to make noise. And Nick, on your topic, potential, free agents that can be inserted into that DH role, you talked about Anthony Rizzo. Another guy is J.D. Martinez, 38 years old. He's at his moments. Last played with the Mets last season in 2024, where he hit .235, wasn't all there, 16 home runs, but we've seen the pop. His best season was in 2017, where he hit 45 home runs and a .303 average, something that you don't see nowadays with average combined with the pop. But again, I think to start off the season, I think you just go with Ben Rice. I think you let the kid fly. I like him, 26 years old. He's someone, he played well last year. We all remember that 3 home run game versus the Red Sox, where he kind of took over, and then he struggled after that. he didn't hit too well. The strikeouts were up. He was chasing. Eventually, he didn't. He was benched, and Rizzo came back, and he wasn't that much of a factor in the playoffs. But I like to see the young kid get a shot again. Bring him out, like we talked about, the baby bombers. Bring him out there. You have a lot of youth in this lineup. Volpe, 23. Dominguez, 22. Rice, 26. Oswaldo Cabrera, 26. Austin Wells, 26. And you surround them by the veteran presence. I think you do have the potential to keep the season afloat by the trade deadline. I think that's the goal. Be in contention by the trade deadline. Go out there, make some moves. Hopefully have Luis Eel back by then. But it's going to be very interesting. But Nick, do you think... So are you more of a Rizzo than a Rice fan?
I would love to see Ben Rice coming in. Obviously, he's much younger than Anthony Rizzo. He has very good potential to be an effective playmaker, hitter for this Yankee ball club. And as we saw last year, Anthony Rizzo, he had some moments, but he also did get hurt a lot, and he just wasn't as clutch offensively or defensively as he was in the past when he first started with the Yankees or his time while he was with the Chicago Cubs. So I think in this type of situation, you try to go with the youngster in Ben Rice and see at 26 years old what he can do for the New York Yankees. And I think he can definitely fit that role in the pinstripe uniform.
The options are there for sure. It's a matter of, and the one thing I like about Ben Rice, you don't have to put him in the 4-hole. He doesn't have to have that pressure of batting behind Aaron Judge. We kind of saw the pressure take place. It doesn't take place with everyone, but Volpe a little bit when the Yankees put him in the leadoff spot. He struggled. Again, you're batting ahead of, these are guys, Volpe graduated high school in 2019. He was watching Juan Soto, who batted second, and then Judge batting third. So these are guys he grew up watching, and now you're a young kid inserted into the starting lineup, 22 years old. It's difficult. It's a transition. Pitchers nowadays, they're averaging 95 miles per hour. But I like, in Ben Rice's case, keep him in the bottom of the lineup, younger. He can be 7, 8. I think he'll get it going. He's showed some pop. Anytime you can have a lefty hitter in there with that short porch, the potential is there. So Aaron Boone has his options. It's going to be interesting for sure. And now we are going to move on to, we'll take the A train. Nick will jump in. You can sit in the front row. I'll sit in the back and talk about some Mets. The Mets, they've looked very, very good in spring training. Soto, first at bat a few weeks ago. What does he do? He hits a home run. But in particular, Clay Holmes, the free agent acquisition, 31 years old. This is someone coming from the Yankees last season. He lost his closer role. He didn't pitch well. He was inaccurate in terms of velocity, location. He wasn't a guy you could rely on. Every time I was watching TV holding my breath because you saw Clay Holmes warming up in the bullpen in a one-run game, and he didn't do too well. So that's why the mentality for Mets manager Carlos Mendoza was, bring Clay Holmes in and let's convert him into a starter. And we discussed this on the show a few weeks ago, and I believe, Nick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we both believe that this wouldn't work out too well. But so far, I know it's only spring training, the man has looked very, very good. 1-0 record, that doesn't really matter in spring training, but what stands out to me is 9 1/3 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, not a single run allowed. He looked very, very good. This is someone standing at 6'5", 245. He has a great sinker. It drops off the table. When he throws it for a strike, and I mean, come on, anybody throwing upwards of triple digits, it's very difficult to hit. Pair that with that nasty slider/sweeper that Holmes has in his repertoire. I mean, I think this can work. Again, spring training is a time where a lot of guys, he doesn't go through the lineup fully. He'll pitch maybe 1 or 2 innings, and then you'll see the rookies get a chance. My thing for me is, how is he going to fare in the regular season when he's pitching 5 or 6 innings a game? You have to go through the lineup 2 or 3 times, and hitters see you again. Because as a closer role, you only see a hitter one time. You're not going through a lineup twice, because if the inning prolongs, you're taken out of the game. Because a closer, give or take in an outing, if they're assuming they're pitching 1 inning, 15 to 20 pitches. I mean, it's interesting for sure. Nick, how do we feel about Holmes?
Well, obviously, as Yankee fans here, me and you, Sebastian, I think it's safe to say that it pains us to see this kind of stuff happening with a guy who couldn't perform like this last year and didn't work up to his full potential, as his 2024 MLB regular season ended as one of his worst. He blew a league-leading 13 saves, but he also converted 30 saves, but he also pitched a 3.14 ERA in 67 appearances. So for a closer, that's definitely not the kind of numbers that you want. And now, here he is as a brand new starting pitcher for the New York Mets. He never was a starting pitcher. And you said it yourself, the guy has not allowed a single run in 3 games that he played and started. And he's got a 1-0 record with a .62 whip and 13 strikeouts. So I don't want to say amaze, because it is spring training. So obviously for Clay Holmes, this is a great confidence booster for him to see, like, wow, I can do this. I can be a starting pitcher and take on this role for the New York Mets. But again, these games don't count. It's just spring training. So now you have to see what he's made of. Once that regular season starts, then we will see what kind of a pitcher Clay Holmes will be. But as of right now, in spring training, things seem to be going well for Clay Holmes in a positive way.
Absolutely, and when it comes to regular season time, you play teams in your division multiple times a year. He's going to have to go through this Phillies lineup where twice or 3 times a game you have to go through Schwarber, Trey Turner, and Bryce Harper in that order. So I'm very curious to see how Holmes fares facing the lineup twice, 3 times. It's going to be very interesting, but so far he's been pitching well. He's throwing strikes. He's incorporated a changeup to go along with that sinker and sweeper, so a lot in his arsenal. And before we go to a break, Nick, I want to throw this question out there, and I'll let you kick it off. Because we have the top teams. You have the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets. You have the teams that have high expectations going into the season. But the question that I want to throw out there for you is, what is one team, in your opinion, that is underrated going into the season? A team where they don't get the media attention, but they have maybe, I don't know, a combination of young players paired with some veterans, and when you mesh them together, you have a pretty solid foundation.
Wow. An underrated team going into this season, Sebastian. Obviously, last year there were some teams who I would say most people probably expected them to do better, but now going into this year, they definitely improved and added some additional key players that could possibly help them out. And as a Yankee fan, you're not going to believe this, but I think I'm actually going to go with the Boston Red Sox as one of the teams that are underrated, because last year they didn't finish very well. They didn't even make it to the playoffs, and they had some solid hitters on the team too. But now they have some new additions to the team. They just added Alex Bregman to the Red Sox about the time when spring training was about to begin, and he obviously, for those who know or those who don't know, he was a solid hitter when he was with the Houston Astros, and he's a 2-time World Series champion, and the guy's hitting is unbelievable. His contact with the ball is clutch as anything, and I think he'll definitely be very effective in this lineup. You also got the powerhouse hitter Rafael Devers on the left side, who crushes the ball at Fenway, as well as other parks with a short porch and right, like Yankee Stadium. You got Rob Refsnyder. You got, of course, Justin Wilson as a pitcher. You got Wilyer Abreu. You got You got Richard Fitz. You got all these fantastic players. Trevor Story as your shortstop. They got all these great guys. They just added Garrett Crotchet in their pitching rotation. They really have a fantastic lineup and pitching rotation. And I think it's going to be a pretty interesting year for Boston going into 2025.
For sure, and I love the players you just mentioned. Justin Fitz, Justin Wilson. These are guys, they've pitched significant innings in the MLB, and these are someone that in a competitive American League East, you need these to step up. And the Red Sox went out there, they made their moves. They got Alex Bregman, they got Garrett Crochet on the left side throwing 96 miles an hour with a slider. Reminds me of Chris Sale back in the day. Very, very good. And for me, I'm going to stay in the American League in East and take the Baltimore Orioles. I think that they are underrated, and I'm not going to stop my criticism for them from a baseball fan's perspective because they didn't make a lot of moves. Their biggest one was signing the left fielder Tyler O'Neill, who played with the Red Sox, 29 years old, big guy, Fenway Park, bodybuilder actually. His dad, fun fact on the show, his dad is Mr. Olympia in Canada for bodybuilding.
Really?
And Tyler O'Neill actually got in trouble when he was with the Red Sox, I believe. Excuse me, not with the Red Sox. Yes, with the Red Sox for working out too much because he was getting, I guess, too buff. And I mean, it's definitely a factor in baseball. You want to make sure that you're mobile and all. But I like Tyler O'Neill insert into that 6th role. And I think people forget, first of all, Felix Bautista. People forget about this man as the closer for the Orioles. Missed all of last season with Tommy John surgery. This is someone, when healthy, is one of, if not the best closer in Major League Baseball. Standing at 6'6", throwing 102 miles an hour with a splitter, coming into the 9th inning, this man is absolutely filthy. And another thing that people forget is Jackson Holliday, the former first-round pick. This man got a lot of criticism in his first big league season last year. 21 years old. This is someone, he didn't play well last season. The kid was only 20 years old. Give him a break. And now, in the bottom of the lineup, you don't have to be the guy. Gunnar Henderson is there. Adley Rutschman is there. Jordan Westberg, Tyler O'Neill, all players we just mentioned. This is someone, if his defense is up there at second base, you let him struggle a little bit. He's a guy getting into a rhythm. You don't give up on a first overall pick that quickly. So if he gets into a rhythm, we've seen him dominate at AAA. We've seen the power. 5 home runs last season, 15 walks. He's working the count, 69 strikeouts, only a 189 average, but I like the potential there. So the Orioles are my underrated team. A lot to go down in Major League Baseball. Very, very interesting. But we are going to take a quick break here on the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Don't go away just yet, because when Nick and I return, we will be discussing the National Football League. A lot has gone down there. A lot of moves, tons of acquisitions, and much more right here on the Sports Corner. We are back here on the Sports Corner. I'm Sebastian Stratton, joined alongside Nick Suppa. Nick, a lot has gone down in the NFL this past week, with the legal tampering period opening up Monday and the official league year starting yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So how that works, if for the listeners that don't know, players can verbally agree to deals starting on Monday afternoon or Monday morning, I believe. You can just agree. And then yesterday, starting at 4 p.m., those transactions are officially complete and players are sent to their new teams via trade, or if they prefer to sign there via free agency, they just sign there. So, Nick, I am going to give you a big responsibility for the last 20 minutes of the show. I am going, because, as you know, I always record the show on my phone because we upload it later. I am going to designate you as Mr. Adam Schefter. We'll call you Nick Schefter for the show. For those who don't know, Adam Schefter is the leading inside reporter for the NFL. Always the go-to guy when it comes to breaking the latest NFL news. So, Nick, if you get something on your phone, especially regarding quarterbacks, let us know. You can interrupt me, give the breaking news signal, a drum roll, whatever you want.
I definitely will, Sebastian. And yes, as you said, we definitely have had a ton of NFL news breaking the last week, about a week at this point. But to start things off, I can't do it any better than to kick it off with our favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. they have signed DK Metcalf, and the Seattle Seahawks have traded him to the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier this week for a 2025 second-round pick, and the teams swap a 6th and 7th round picks. The Steelers have signed him for 5 years and $150 million. So massive contract, probably the biggest move by the Steelers during this offseason so far. Definitely something massive that they needed. They were in dire need of that big wide receiver, and they got him in DK Metcalf. Last season, he had 66 receptions, just finished short of 1,000 yards, 992 to be exact, only 5 touchdowns. But I think he could definitely be a huge fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you think about him, Sebastian? Good move by the Steelers?
I love it. I was very excited. Eating my Chipotle Sunday night, I got the notification by Adam Schefter. I really couldn't believe it. I actually thought it was a troll account at first because we never see the Steelers. And Nick, I think you did it special. You have your Steelers hat on.
I do.
We never see, under new general manager Omar Khan, he's gone out there and made acquisitions. And this was a dire need for Pittsburgh. We saw it all season to go along with the subpar play at quarterback for a majority of the season. They needed a big body receiver to play opposite. He's a vertical threat to go along with George Pickens, standing at 6'4", 235 pounds. This man, he's very, very good, and we saw, as you mentioned, only 5 touchdowns. But he did deal with an injury for a majority of the season with his shoulder. At some points, he was outshined by the rookie, JSN. So, I love this move. I think DK Metcalf can be a guy opposite of George Pickens to get the attention off of him, because we saw the Steelers, they went out there, they got Mike Williams last year's trade deadline. He had that game-winning touchdowns against the Washington Commanders, but then he was a ghost. He wasn't utilized well, so I think that Metcalf can be a guy coming in there with Casper the Ghost, because the Steelers, I thought about baseball, I'm very excited. They only have one quarterback on the roster, and that's Skylar Thompson, who is not going to be the starter. If anything, he's a reserve guy that's going to be the 3rd or 4th string. The Steelers still do not have a quarterback signed, so I'm assuming DK and George Pickens are a little bit frustrated over that because they don't know who's going to be throwing them the football.
No.
But the core is there. You have George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Pat Fryermuth at tight end over the middle, Calvin Austin, he's a guy that can play underneath, assuming Pittsburgh puts him in that slot role. Ran a 4.3 40-yard dash out of Memphis. Standing at 5'8", he's little, but he plays like a big man. He's a vertical threat as well. So tons of options. So very curious to see there. And back to the subject of quarterback and somewhat the Pittsburgh Steelers. The New York Jets, under new head coach Aaron Glenn, have went out there and signed former Pittsburgh Steeler and former Chicago Bear Justin Fields to a contract, 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed. We talk about a guy with a lot of potential. Nick, I don't really think Justin Fields has hit his ceiling yet.
It's definitely something that I don't even think Pittsburgh Steelers fans saw coming. When they signed Justin Fields last season, everybody thought, oh my God, this is going to be the potential future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And because they had Russell Wilson, and then not too long after that they had signed Justin Fields, so people thought that Russell Wilson would be the guy to start and take Justin Fields under his wing. But now it's looking like Russell Wilson may potentially be gone, and we'll get into him later. And now Justin Fields has signed with the Jets 2 years and $40 million, and now the Steelers are in that situation once again since the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger. Who is going to be their next future? And that's what many have been questioning now since that happened about 3 years ago. And now Justin Fields will be moving on from Pittsburgh and heading to whether it's New York or New Jersey, as MetLife Stadium is here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Who knows? He will be moving on to a brand new team once again.
Good for Justin Fields. I mean, if I were him, and I think Ryan Clark said it on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, how could you go back to Pittsburgh? You start the season after Russell Wilson is dealing with an injury. You do what they ask. It was noted it was a limited playbook. The Steelers are the team in the NFL. They never throw the ball over the middle because head coach Mike Tomlin, he preaches no turnovers, ball security. So this was it was a lot of sideline routes, RPO options with running backs Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. He did his job. The kid played well. In Week 5 versus the Colts, he threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4-2 when he got benched. I mean, how often does that happen in the NFL? And I agreed with the decision at first because from head coach Mike Tomlin's perspective, you want to see what you have out of your young kid in Justin Fields. Not Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. You want to see what you have out of both of them. So, I mean, Pittsburgh goes out there, they sign Russell Wilson. They don't play him because he's dealing with that injury, and now Fields comes in, does his job, and now Tomlin has a decision to make. Do I keep going with the 26-year-old from Ohio State, or do I insert the former Super Bowl champion from the Seattle Seahawks and Denver Broncos? And Mike Tomlin made that decision on his own. He went with Russell Wilson. At first, everybody was praising him. I am one of them. Nick, I don't know if you were. But Russell Wilson, he struggled down the stretch. It wasn't him. It wasn't entirely his fault. But the Steelers, they lost their last 5 games. They were a first-round exit. They haven't won a playoff game since Barack Obama was president. So I don't blame Justin Fields. He did what he was asked.
Yep.
He's definitely hasn't hit his ceiling in terms of passing. He's mobile. Standing at 6'3", 227, he's a big-body option. And now he goes to the Jets under new head coach Aaron Glenn, the former Lions defensive coordinator, in an offense with some weapons. They lost Devontae Adams. However, they do still have running backs Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. That's a duo there. You have, and now the great thing about Fields, you're paired up with your former teammate, former Ohio State wide receiver Garrett Wilson. They played together at Ohio State, so definitely going to be a connection there. I'll make sure to cue it on my fantasy draft board to draft Garrett Wilson this year. But again, I think they are in a similar situation with Pittsburgh in terms of they need a viable second option, whether that's through the draft, free agency. I think they should make a play at Cooper Kupp, who just got released by the Rams yesterday, because they need a viable second option. It's not really there. The offensive line is in the making. There's potential. Elijah Vera-Tucker, Chukwuma Okorafor, former Pittsburgh Steeler. It looks like he's going to be inserted at right tackle. So the sky is definitely the limit for Justin Fields, but he has to prove himself. 10-31 as a starter, or 10-21, that doesn't do you too well in the NFL. So, third team, I think the pressure's on. Stephen A. Smith said it pretty well yesterday. It's now or never for Justin Fields. You have a new head coach. You have a very good defense led by Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter II, Quincy Williams, Quinnen Williams. That's a duo there. So you have a good defense. You come to New Jersey / New York, and it's go time. He has to do what it has to be done to secure that starting job, or else someone else will take it, because there's a lot of quarterbacks, only 32 starting jobs. So very interesting for sure. And on the quarterback role, the agenda, Sam Darnold, the former New York Jet, Minnesota Viking. Big congratulations to him. He earned this money. He has signed with the Seattle Seahawks on a 3-year, $100 million deal with $55 million guaranteed. Nick, I don't know how you feel. I think I'm a little bit mixed about this in terms of what Sam Darnold's future holds for a Seattle team where they released 2 wide receivers and they traded their other starting quarterback. How do you feel?
Well, it's definitely an interesting one, because as we saw, there was just Seattle madness going on for the Seahawks as they completely cleared house in the last week. They got rid of Geno Smith. They gave him up to the Raiders. As we mentioned before, DK Metcalf, they traded him to the Steelers. They traded away all these guys on offense and defense. And now they are set with a brand new quarterback in Sam Darnold, who is still young, but this is already, at 27 years old, his fifth team that he's on. He started out his career with the New York Jets. He was the third overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft. He was with the Jets from 2018 to 2020, didn't really do much there. Then, for about 2 years, he was with the Carolina Panthers, not much success. Then, nowhere to be found in San Francisco with the 49ers. And then in dire need of a quarterback, the Minnesota Vikings get Sam Darnold, and they put him in as the starting position due to an unfortunate season-ending injury for their rookie quarterback that they drafted last year, J.J. McCarthy, and he ended up being a Pro Bowl and got the Vikings to the playoffs, and it was by far Sam Darnold's best season, and it was unfortunate for him because it was an early exit against the Los Angeles Rams, and now he signed a 3-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks. So obviously it's a brand new system, so you don't know how Sam Darnold is going to be. You don't know if he's going to live up to the same expectations as he did with the Minnesota Vikings. Is it going to be another fantastic season for Sam Darnold? I'm not really sure. It's going to be interesting. What do you think about this deal, Sebastian?
First of all, congratulations to Sam. I mean, he had a great season last year, coming off, as you mentioned, 5 former teams. He was awful with the Jets. He was a backup for most of his time in San Francisco. He was a starter for a little bit in Carolina, but he comes to Minnesota under head coach Kevin O'Connell and has a career year by far. He was awesome. Over 4,000 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and the highest completion percentage of his career at 66%. But now the situation changes drastically, Nick. You go to a Seattle team that no one is going to say this out loud in the NFL, but there comes a point in time where you have to rebuild. And for the Seattle team, it looks like they are heading in that direction because you trade away your top 2 receivers, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You trade away Geno Smith, who was serviceable as a starter. He goes and reunites with his former head coach, Pete Carroll. So now you're left with Kenneth Walker III at running back and Jackson Smith and Jigba at wide receiver. Yesterday or 2 days ago, they signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's a big ball threat at 6'5". He can be a vertical option. Noah Fant at tight end, A.J. Barner. A solid O-line at the tackles, Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas. But here's the thing. A lot of money, $55 million guaranteed for a guy who had one good season. And Lorenzo, if you are anywhere listening to this show, I know you couldn't be on today because you're not feeling well. But I don't think he would be happy with my take because I know he's a Sam Darnold fan. But I just can't get behind giving someone who had one good season $55 million guaranteed. And again, he was good. He was good. 14-3 wild card. They lost to the Rams, but we saw it when it came time to perform in that Week 18 game versus the Lions. He struggled under pressure.
Yep.
Sunday Night Football, a lot of overthrows. He has the weapons. It's not as if he came in there and made the team good himself. You have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison at the receiver position, Aaron Jones at running back, TJ Hawkinson when he returned from that injury, and an unbelievable play caller in Kevin O'Connell, who was the offensive coordinator when the Rams won the Super Bowl. So now you move to a totally different situation in a competitive NFC West where the 49ers are always good. And all the other teams, the Rams under Matthew Stafford, they went out there, they got Devontae Adams. And the Cardinals under Kyler Murray, they are always a threat. So, I don't know. It's very interesting. He reunites with his offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, who was his guy in San Francisco, so there's a little bit of a connection there. But $55 million guaranteed is a lot of money. Going to be interesting. I don't think the Seahawks make the playoffs. I don't think Sam Darnold carries them. He's good, but $55 million, man, that's a lot of money for someone who had one good season and was on 4 teams prior to the season. But congratulations to Sam. You earned it. Led the Vikings to victory. And the last story we will touch on the Sports Corner for today is the Rams. We're staying in the NFC West, hanging out on the beach. The Los Angeles Rams have signed wide receiver Davante Adams, former New York Jet, Green Bay Packer, and the Las Vegas Raider, to a 2-year, $46 million deal. Davante Adams, he was at one point, no doubt, the best wide receiver in the NFL, making unbelievable catches. Had this for a decade. He was so dominant with quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Nick, how do we feel?
This is a fantastic pick for the Los Angeles Rams. And Lorenzo, you may not agree with this one either, but I think that this is a fantastic move by the Rams. Especially, they have this unbelievable talent as a quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who helped the Rams in winning their second Super Bowl, first time since 2000, back when they had Kurt Warner as their quarterback. And Matthew Stafford has been doing an incredible job for them, and Davante Adams he's been this unbelievable wide receiver in the NFL, going back to his time when he was with Aaron Rodgers, when he was with the Green Bay Packers, and then, of course, he joined him more recently when he was with the New York Jets. But now he's gone. He's with the Los Angeles Rams, and now Aaron Rodgers, of course, was released from the Jets, as we all know. And there's been talks of him going to another team like the New York Giants or possibly the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is what people are assuming is the team he might be going to. But we'll see about that. But as for Davante Adams, great pick by the Los Angeles Rams. This one is going to be very interesting.
No doubt, and Adams, he's definitely getting up there in age at 32 years old, but he goes to a good situation under Sean McVay, offensive guru to say the least. Matthew Stafford at quarterback, re-signed that deal, and he doesn't have to be the guy. Again, he'll be that second option behind Puka Nacua, who just emerged on the scene for the Rams. He's been great, and he definitively takes over the Cooper Kupp role, which the Rams released him yesterday. He is someone that's not going to be an option for them anymore because he's simply not on the team.
Oh, and Tutu Atwell.
And Tutu Atwell, yes.
I forgot about him. My bad on that, Sebastian.
No, 100%. Tutu Atwell. We talk about you have your 1 and 2, your dynamic duo, and Tutu Atwell. He's a vertical threat, standing at only 5'9", but he can be a viable option for sure. Very interesting in the NFL. Tons of moves went down. We could not get to all of them. It was up to us. We'd be here forever talking about sports because although we are on spring break here at Montclair State University, sports don't take a break, whether it's in season, off season, always something to talk about. But that is going to do it here on the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. I am Sebastian Stratton, joined alongside my always amazing co-host, Mr. Nick Suppa. That is going to be all for today, and we will see you next week with hopefully more news in the MLB, NFL, and the Montclair State University athletics. Have a great day, everyone.